Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So I already know the people who actually follow me are probably like, where the fuck you been? And I will just say, I'm sorry in advance. And also chronic pain and depression kind of got the best of me, which I will probably do a video on that later on. But good news, next week it is my birthday. I got to thinking about like all of the lessons that I've learned in life, and I put together a little video for you guys of 36 life lessons that I have learned in my 36 years. Yes, I am 36. I'm not old, but I am definitely not anyone's target demographic anymore. So yeah, it's kind of a weird experience getting older and also still feeling like you're 12 years old and, you know, forever awkward and weird. Now that I am older, I have more clarity, which feels great, but I also have bigger pores and I have more wrinkles and gray hair. So it's like a trade-off. You get to feel better about yourself while progressively looking worse. You're welcome for telling me that information. So now without further ado, here are my 36 life lessons that I would like to pass on to you. When I was around 3 or 4, I tackled a kid for stealing my markers. You know, I don't feel like this was my best moment, but I got something good out of it, and I hope he did too. Not only did he cry, but I didn't get a prize for being a good student that day, so I learned to settle your issues with words if you want to get along in life. Also, I learned to keep my shit in my pockets, and I hope he learned to not take my shit, literally or figuratively, probably. Around when I was 3 or 4, my youngest aunt, who was about I want to say 10 at the time, and my cousins stood me on a stool in the middle of the living room, played the theme song on the record player, and told me Jaws would get me if I got off the stool. That day I learned to distrust sharks and family. I've since learned to trust sharks because they are beautiful, amazing creatures who kill less people per year than cows and are endangered because of overfishing and vilification by the public. Shark-splaining. But I'm still iffy about family. Just kidding. Or am I? As a kid, I had a dog and we fed her Kibbles and Bits dog food. I was super curious about what the food tasted like because it came with like little bones and little like pieces of meat looking things, and it was all different shapes and colors. So I would sneak it into my bed and hide it to snack on later when my mother went to sleep. After a while, I developed chronic diarrhea. Sorry for the TMI. And my mother couldn't figure out what was going on with me until she cleaned my room and found like literally a hoard of dog food that I was storing to stuff into my face when she went to sleep. That day I learned not to eat pet food, even if it looks and tastes amazing. Do they even make Kibbles and Bits anymore? My mother purchased a waterbed for me as it was the big trend of beds in the 80s. Like everybody had one. Super uncomfortable, but whatever. I thought it was the coolest thing until I rolled into the side between the mattress and the frame and got legit stuck for about 8 minutes because my little kid muscles couldn't release the pressure from the side of the bed. That day I learned that bedding companies lie to you. What a good learning experience. So anyway, holla at your boy Purple Mattress. I will shill your expensive bedding for you at a price. I'm sure this is going to sound obvious to you guys, but even as a kid, I loved any and all animals. I begged for hamsters, and I was elated when I finally got a pair for the holidays, or like right before the holidays. One day I noticed some little pink, wriggling, fat worm-looking things in the bottom of the cage, and was told that the ugly gummy worms were babies. I watched the babies every day to see if they grew and was so excited to get to hold them when they were old enough. One night I noticed that a lot of the babies were missing. I looked around until I saw Mama Hamster munching on one of them with blood all over her tiny, beautiful little face, much to my abject horror. That day I learned that parenting is hard. My first real boyfriend and I went to a Fiona Apple and Counting Crows concert on our first date. The 90s. We talked in hushed tones and sat really close together all night. And right before we kissed, for the very first time, he said, "I guess I'm just a bad person." And I wanted to ask about that, but, you know, I was gonna get a kiss, and that was super exciting. So I thought I could wait for it to come back around. We'd get back to that topic. But, yeah, that night I learned it was okay to stop a potentially romantic moment to ask for some clarification on some things. Again, with like love and crushes and all that fun high school BS. I had the biggest crush on this older guy in another city for a long time. We would always see each other when my mother and I visited his adorable small town, and we would, make eyes and talk a lot, but we never conversed about being interested in one another. It just never came up. One day while out for lunch, he asked my mother if he could date me, and I immediately was just humiliated, turned beet red, and just so angry, and told him he was an idiot for asking my mom before he even talked to me about it, like I was just something that could be passed along like an object. I learned that objectively hot dudes who are 19 can still be f***ing morons. One New Year's Eve when I was a junior in high school, I went to a co-ed party with some friends and their college-aged love interests. I immediately got wasted and called my mom while crying, begging her for forgiveness and asking her to come pick me up even though I had absolutely no idea where I was. That day I learned that moms are superheroes and mixing alcohol is just a bad idea. Just don't do it, kids. Don't. I had this boyfriend that would routinely stand me up after making plans with me and then get mad at me when I'd be upset with him for wasting time that I could have used to do, any literal other thing but wait for him.
I am not a fantasy. If you want me, earn me. Until then, we are done.
I broke up with and blocked him on Facebook because I was just done with his bullshit entirely, and I told him in person because I didn't want him to learn it by trying to find me on Facebook, and he got super mad at me and threw shit around. That day I learned that douchebags not only hate consequences, but they hate taking accountability for their actions. When I was in preschool, I watched Legend for the first time. It's an incredible fantasy movie that has probably the best Tim Curry performance of all time in it. So he plays the Darkness, a larger-than-life, red, half-horse, half-man, demon thing with giant horns. Enjoy your nightmares. I started having little nightmares about his character, and once, during nap time at my super Southern Baptist preschool, I told my teacher about the nightmare I had with the big demon guy. They thought I was possessed by the devil and called my mom immediately to inform her. That day I learned to watch your words because people are way too literal. While living in Chicago, I relied solely on public transit, and just so as you know, it's the best possible place to meet absolute weird, freaky people. One day on the L, I randomly thought about a mini pony wearing, I think it was overalls, and I started crying from the cute, which put me into an absolute laughing fit off and on for the following 10 minutes until I got off at my stop. That's when I learned if you act crazy, not even the crazies want to sit next to you, and you get a full row by yourself. So I haven't talked much about my pets, but I have 4 dogs, one of which we are pretty certain is not bright, to put it politely. Jack, what you want? He's a baby boy. He's so tiny. One day I had the windows open in my bedroom, letting the fresh air in, and the suction pulled my bedroom door closed, and it closed with a slam. My beautiful but dumb boy, Action Jackson, jumped behind me on the bed between the headboard and my back and shook with fear. I've never seen him that scared in my life. That day, I learned that if a murderer were to break into my home, I would unequivocally get murdered in the face with no interference from my dogs, my sweet babies. Alright, so some of you know that I lived in Chicago for a while, but you probably don't know the reason is that I moved to Chicago with my then boyfriend because it's where he lived and worked. And to be fair, I loved living in Chicago, and I lived there for quite a few years after and loved my time there, but that first year was so fraught with issues, it caused a huge rift between us that wasn't fixed for many years after. So after our breakup, I felt so alone, and I missed having stability in a social life and having support from friends and family because, I moved there for him and I didn't really build anything for myself. It did get better, and I learned quite a lot about myself during that time, but I learned to never move for a man again. Move because you want to move and you want to pursue your own life there first. And then the boyfriend is just like the cherry on top. I had this adopted uncle that I would go see every summer in the boonies in Arkansas. He was the best friend of my dad and the sweetest guy ever. He ran a rescue for big cats and other wild animals that were inappropriately kept as pets or in informal zoos, and all the animals were housed on his property until he could get them moved off to wherever else. Well, in Arkansas, the only big cat is the puma, or mountain lion as a lot of people call it. He had a male who was the absolute sweetest, lovey boy in the world. And when I'd come to the enclosure, he would rub up against the fencing and play with me. That's when I learned that when big cats purr, they purr with a sound akin to a damn motorcycle, or like 5 motorcycles humming in your ear. And they like to rub their teeth on you, like terrifyingly huge house cats. So that's a thing. When my mother and I were on a road trip, we stopped into a gas station that was playing 80s music. The song Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting came on, and we started fake fighting in the candy aisle. Mom kicked up my face and hit me square in the jaw, breaking it in the process. That day, I learned that you shouldn't kung fu fight unless you have training, and that my mom has like 0 depth perception, so I don't trust her to do anything near my face. When I was a senior in high school, I was a barista for a short period of time at a 24-hour coffee shop. I would constantly get socially awkward guys hitting on me all day for some reason, whether I dressed well or looked like a bruised banana. That's when I learned that dudes have a weird fetish for people who reek of coffee. That being said, I probably would too. Coffee is amazing. Always wait a week before you decide to change your hair. Trust me, no story necessary, I just care about you and your well-being. I got big quick when I got pregnant because I have a short torso, so there was like nowhere for baby to go but out. Because of that, I looked like I was just about to give birth when I was 5 months pregnant. That and like a Wendy's Frosty craving that took hold for about 2 months. Side advice, check the calories when you're pregnant. I'm pretty much convinced that Wendy's made me gain 70 pounds in like 8 months. I got real big. Because I got big so quickly, I had every single person known to man, whether they knew me or not, commenting about how I was just about to pop and you look like you're ready to give birth anytime. So I would always give them the stink eye and say, no, I have 4 months to go. I just eat a lot, and make them super uncomfortable. That's when I learned to just not comment on someone's pregnancy. If they bring it up, cool. Otherwise, you're gonna have some cranky, soon-to-be mom ripping at your tender spots like a wild, angry chimpanzee. My one and only detention in school was for being in a dance-off during recess and doing a forbidden dance move. Yes, there actually was a forbidden dance move at my school in the late 80s, early 90s. It got popular because MC Hammer did it in a video, and basically you like fall backwards on your hand and pump your hips a couple of times and then get up. Scandalous. So I knew we weren't supposed to do that move. I knew it was a forbidden dance move and it was a one-strike policy, but I also knew that I would own that cipher if I did it, so I just went for it. Fuck it. I was promptly pulled out and put in detention, but it was worth it. That's when I learned that those who choose to cut foot loose, let no man put asunder. I don't pretend to be the best role model on the face of the planet, and I, for sure curse more than a normal person should in any given situation, but I try to limit my cursing to a certain extent in front of my child. Once during the holidays, we traveled to Chicago to visit family and friends and attend the husband person's office party. I was with my daughter, and I stubbed my toe on something and shouted, "Fuck," as I am, often want to do, regardless of injury. So Ripley, in her adorable 1-year-old voice, then repeated the fuck, which elicited the biggest laugh from me. Kids cursing is adorable. I don't care what you think. Fight me. Bonus points if they don't use the word correctly. When she heard me laugh, she continued to repeat the fuck over and over, off and on, all day. That's when I learned to hold your laughter, damn it, or they're gonna inherit your filthy mouth. Bitch. There's so many people checking out now. I actually get people commenting about how they would watch my videos if I didn't curse so much. I'm so sorry. I can't help myself. So a couple of months ago, I rescued a 7 to 8 foot boa constrictor named Georgie. And the first couple of times I handled her, I was so sweaty and out of breath that I could only last about 5 minutes before I just had to put her back in her enclosure. I've since come to the conclusion that if absolutely nothing else, one should be strong enough to hold a, giant snake without sweating profusely. Snake fit goals. I'm gonna start a thing on Instagram. It's just a whole bunch of ladies, not necessarily like super, Instagram model bodies, but definitely like really big snakes. Got a hair in my nose. When I was around 14 years old, my neighbor across the street bought a calf for their little farm lot. And again, I get attached to animals really easily. I love all of them, even the creepy ones. And I fully believe that one day I will either probably run a rescue for animals or I'll go back to school for vet care. Maybe. That's a lot of school. Anyway, the calf roamed free and I quickly made friends with him. We would spend my free time running back and forth along the fence with him, giving him pets, and just sitting with him and enjoying his company. He loved to give kisses. Oh, the disgusting but sweet kisses. And he always came when I called. I think you probably can guess what he was purchased for. It didn't occur to me that he wasn't going to be a permanent addition to my neighbor's property. Buddy taught me that all animals have spirits and make friends and have personalities. They deserve so much better than we give them. And I think every person should have a day or two a week where they don't eat any animal products at all. I'm gonna preface this story by saying I don't recommend you overdo any sort of controlled substance. It's just a recipe for disaster and embarrassment. I am incredibly lucky that I went through a majority of my experimentation before social media was a thing, really. The closest I got to it was LiveJournal. Pour one out for LiveJournal. I don't have one. Pour my hopes and dreams out for LiveJournal. I have only 3 experiences with losing control of my bladder as an adult. And one of them involved an inordinately long car ride in traffic, so that I feel like is not my fault. The other 2 incontinence issues involved absinthe. So yeah, piss my pants once, shame on absinthe. Piss my pants twice, and that's my bad. I shouldn't have done it again. So I guess the lesson here is don't drink absinthe. Just don't. If you start to create a career out of a hobby, make sure you replace your hobby. Otherwise, you'll end up always on the clock with no pressure release valve. No story required. That one's obvious. Last winter, we found a geriatric Alaskan Malamute just kind of wandering around in our neighborhood. We took her in while we tried to make contact with her owner, but when it became fairly obvious that the owner didn't want her back, we decided to keep her because she's old. Rude to move her more than once. Her name is Kita, and she's a thick bitch, but she's a total sweetheart, and she loves talking and eating and sleeping, being pet, and getting her hair everywhere. Okay, well, backtrack. When we first moved into our house, Action Jackson was confused about where the back door was, and he peed in front of the window of the family room. We cleaned it up, but it has since become the place that all the accidents happen there. So we've tried everything to curtail it, and it seemed to get better after a while until Kita came into the picture. She was used to running around the neighborhood and kind of doing her own thing, and moving into a house kind of permanently was new to her. So she quickly found the spot and decided that's just where we go when the humans are asleep. Then the other dogs decided to kick off, and we ended up just cleaning dog piss every day or so until we finally ripped up the carpet. We'd had enough. That's when we learned that pissing contests are taken very seriously by dogs. It's a real thing. A long time ago, I was a professional dancer. I taught, performed, workshops, traveled, toured, whatever. It was a lot of work for little pay, but I loved it and I wouldn't trade that part of my life for anything. People I knew from other places would often talk about how glamorous my life looked, how it was cool that I got to travel and get paid for it, how they would bet I was doing really well based on my photos, but I would always respond with, I'm hungry all the time. That's when I learned that the algorithm will lie to you, and nobody's life is as wonderful as it looks. So just focus on yourself. Don't try to be like anybody else, because not even they're like themselves as you see them. One of my first jobs as a teen was working at a Chinese buffet restaurant in around the Memphis, Tennessee area. I've lived in a lot of places. I loved my coworkers, and I was definitely more than a little okay with the free food situation, but the customers were freaking awful. How a person can have 2 plates of food for $7 and try to haggle for a better price because the spaghetti was dry? Have spaghetti, sir. Anyway, that's beyond me. I fully believe that every person should have to work food service for at least a month so they can see the absolute that food workers have to go through. Not only do they freaking deserve a pay raise for dealing with your sorry ass, but they're mostly saints for not punching people on the regular. If you want to know what kind of person you're dealing with, just watch them at a restaurant. If they treat the staff like shit, run fast, run far, and never talk to that person again, because they're not good people. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but I almost died making cinnamon toast. Yeah, that sounds dramatic no matter how I frame it. Well, let me backtrack. After making said toast, I took a bite and breathed in some of the cinnamon dust into my nose, and then quickly sneezed and knocked my head on the open cabinet door. I fell to the ground and saw stars, and for a second, I realized that none of my neighbors knew me, and they would only figure out if I died by like the smell that came from my house when I was already like long since dead. That's when I realized that you should make friends with your neighbors. You know, not crazy great friends. You don't want to freak where you eat necessarily, but you know, make sure that someone knows that you exist, and they'll realize it when you haven't been to your mailbox in a few days. For most of my adult life, I've worked one-on-one with people, and the most common statement I get is, I just feel like I don't fit in with normal people. So here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you this once. Now, I'll probably tell you many times, but I'm going to tell you this once today. Ain't nobody is normal. Everybody, even the most balanced individuals, the people with the healthiest childhoods, the people who seem to have it the most together, are dealing with neuroses and isms that other people wouldn't guess. Nobody is normal. Normal doesn't exist. All humans are weird. So celebrate yourself. No one can be weird as shit quite like you. And that should be something that you take pride in. No story for this one, but vote early, vote often, riot against gerrymandering and voter suppression, and realize that the world doesn't change if you opt out of the decision-making process. Yeah, life is not always fair. Sometimes you don't win, but it's important to be a part of everything. The world depends on many people making positive decisions. And if you don't do that, if you opt out and other people like you opt out, you're never going to get your voice heard. As a young person, I was of the firm belief that I just wasn't like other girls, and I just got along better with guys than I did girls. I wasn't into drama, I didn't like passive aggressiveness, and I desperately wanted to be chill. The cool girl. The girl that's like more like a guy, but she's like a girl, and that's so cool because she'll play video games with you and she doesn't get all needy. I'm a cool girl, I'm a cool girl. Blah, blah, blah. That, my friends, is internalized misogyny and is patently false on all levels. A, women f***ing rock. Truth. If you want someone to tell you like it is, go to your best lady friend and ask her. If your skirt is stuck in the back of your pantyhose, a woman is going to come up behind you and make sure you are not embarrassed walking out into the restaurant. If you have in your teeth, she will stop the conversation to tell you. Women look out for each other in the most intimate and special way, and we need to instill that knowledge into our young people. B, having what is traditionally considered masculine traits is fine and dandy, but so is being femme. Nothing about femininity is objectively dumb, passive, or petty. Be you, whoever that is, and who gives a shit if the people around you approve? See my video, nobody gives a shit. Right up there. Click it, but watch this one too, but click it after. And C, video games, horror films, and skateboarding are not inherently masculine activities. It's just weird that we consider them to be. Do you play video games or skate with your, business? I want to keep my monetization, so I can't say technical terms about our body because YouTube hates it. If you answered yes, I don't want to kink shame you, you do you, but most people might agree that having a specific downstairs situation does not preclude you from doing any activity. So newsflash, you can be femme as fuck and love hunting. You can be daddy as fuck and love cross-stitching daisies on everything. Don't gender basic activities. That was a long-winded way of saying, basically, ladies are awesome, dudes are awesome, people who identify as neither or both are awesome. Just, keep an open mind, find other awesome people, and don't worry about what anyone thinks. All right, we're gonna get real here for a second. I spent the better part of my late teens and 20s dieting, exercising, and researching how to be skinny, how to be supermodel thin. I tried to shrink myself down to fit ideals that are impossible for some, improbable for most. And those ideals are pushed by every media outlet in the West. And this is not just about women. This is also about men. If you don't have a six-pack and like giant pecs and arms that are like, two babies stacked on top of each other, you are deemed less of a man by the media, and that's up. So to the people who want to be thin to be attractive, I say to you, don't shrink yourself down to be more palatable for other people. If you're skinny, wear that body with pride. If you're fat, luxuriate in your skin. Don't focus on being skinny or getting a six-pack or whatever else you feel like you have to do to be attractive to people. Focus on being strong and feeling great in the body you have. I don't talk about it often, but when I was around 14, an F3 tornado, and I believe it was one of the largest in Arkansas's history, hit and demolished our home along with many others in my neighborhood. I narrowly escaped having a full-ass 20-foot tree fall on me in bed because I heard the crack of the trunk and quickly got up to see what was happening. I remember feeling that everything that I had, everything in life that I had ever purchased, saved, or cherished was lost forever. All my old notes from friends at school, my journals, photos, even, old prized possessions I was holding on to for memory's sake were destroyed. It's affected me long term in that I am not the type of person to save mementos because I feel like at some point or another, everything gets lost. My mother and I were homeless for a while because we had a hard time, like everybody else, getting the insurance company to pay out so that we could fix our destroyed house. And we just didn't have the kind of money to advance that on our own. But one great thing that came out of that disaster was seeing all my neighbors pulling together to find pets, to do temporary repairs on what they could of people's homes, and just coming together to mourn the loss as a community. I learned that home is not possessions or houses, it's the community that you build and how you care for the people around you. Here's a simple one that doesn't need a backstory. Depression is a liar. Misery loves company, and depression is a miserable son of a bitch who just wants to bring you down to its level. So don't fall into the trap of repeating the lies that your depression tells you. Start a habit of combating those lies with all the good things in you. And if you think about it, you can find those good things. Just like there exists bad things in your personality, there exists plenty of good things to combat those. So really do the work. Fuel what feeds you. Fuel what feeds you. Is that good enough? Did I clap enough for you to understand I mean it? There will always be a million reasons to not follow your passion. And if you're super creative, I bet you can think of 1,000,001 to just do it to, any degree that you are able. Don't measure your success in dollars, although I do know that you need money to live on because capitalism is a cancer. But try to measure your success in your self-worth and in your happiness. And you don't have to give up your day job that helps you pay the bills. Just give your passion as much time as you can per week. An hour a week doing something that you love will have an enormous change on your perception of yourself in the better. I don't know if that was clear. All right, my last piece of advice to you, and this is the most important, so I want you to really put on your listening ears. Do you have them? I'm not religious, but I truly believe that if God created one perfect food straight from their God brains, it would be the burrito. So always keep burrito fixins in your house. Also, in my opinion, every bite should have at least half a pickled jalapeno slice because it's delicious. So Praise Jesus. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for listening to me ramble about my life and about things that I think. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button. You can also find me elsewhere at JolieXOX, and that's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that business. Again, I am trying to crawl out of my hole and do more. I appreciate your patience. I think I just had a really tough summer. I think that's what it is. And I think I'm trying to come out of it by force right now. So I'll let you know how that goes. All right, I'll see you next time. Mwah. Let me know how you feel about the video in the comments, and let me know your best piece of advice from your life so far, or if like one of these pieces of advice really resonated with you.